Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this patches edition of Dev Talk. My name is HiRezBart. Joining me to my right, your left, is the one and only HiRezKP, aka Kevin Powell. Kevin, how are you?
Doing good.
Good. Good. We're happy to have you here today. Guys, if you are just joining us, this is going to be our first look at the up-and-coming god, who is going to be, well, Sylvanus.
Yeah.
So he is, well, I'll let Kevin actually describe that. Kevin, role, general idea, give us a little of an insight into maybe the synthesis of kind of like, you know, you get handed like, here's Sylvanus, right? Like this is the next guy you're doing.
Yeah.
Just coming off Cabrakan, another kind of guardian role.
Yeah.
I guess walk us through a little bit of that early process.
Yeah. So I mean, Cabrakan, he was more really a lot of people play him sort of bruiserous. So Sylvanus, he's sort of meant to be the more utility-based guardian.
Okay.
He's going to be extremely helpful in team fights and in lane, and that's sort of where I wanted to put him, especially doing sort of two guardians back to back. I definitely want them to feel different, and I think Sylvanus definitely fills a role that we've been needing in the guardian sort of class for a while.
Yeah, he does a couple of unique things. We'll get into that in a little bit, guys. The general run of this show is that we're going to talk a little bit about the synthesis of the god, the design process, pick KP's brain a little bit. We'll open it up for questions towards the end, and then we will also be taking a look at his abilities in game. Nothing too specific, more functionality, and exactly how it all is going to go down. That being said, Sylvanus is a Roman god. Is the Roman counterpart of the Greek god Pan. So kind of this woodland nature protector, not really like a big, beefy kind of guardian in your mind, at least, when you talk about these kind of satyr, often they're depicted that way. Like what? So Sylvanus in particular, like actually we have his card available. We can go and pull that up while you talk to this. Is kind of where did this idea come from?
So, I mean, like I said last time, it's like we go through a number of different iterations on, the presentation of the god and everything, and so really it was just a matter of what we needed to fill as the role for what we need for SMITE at the time. And so pretty much it was just a number of iterations that went in on the art side, design side, all the different facets, and we came to the conclusion of what you're seeing right now, basically. And yeah, making him fit that role, it was fairly easy. There's not a whole lot of lore behind him, doing great battles and all that stuff. So we were able to sort of take our own sort of approach to that, really. So I think you guys will like what he does and how he's presented.
Primary kind of lore elements are kind of defender of nature and the forest and trees, and kind of controls like almost the ecosystem of the forest, right? Like it's kind of like in tune with the wolves and the rabbits and all the plants, all the animals.
Pretty much all nature is
harvesting
just like,
his grove.
Yeah.
So very druidic, actually.
Yeah.
Is this kind of style. So we actually can take a look at him in game. We have the landing page up here, and he's pretty awesome looking. You can kind of get a sense of the scale of Sylvanus, who is actually the little man riding the giant tree, who, although not directly referenced, does have a name, I believe. Kevin, if you would be so kind.
Yes. So the treant's name is Grover.
So Grover, the treant there, you can see he's awful angry looking, and well, there's Sylvanus on top. He's an old bearded man.
Pretty mean looking.
You may recall Radagast icon was, well, data mined. And maybe the most important piece of all, in the top left corner there, you see that all art and effects are not final here. So he is still being worked on. He's pretty damn close. As you can see, he's pretty awesome looking, but our art team has very high standards, and
he's
not quite there yet.
Ridiculously awesome. This is just like, man, every time I see him, it's just like...
He's really cool looking.
So good.
So let's talk a little bit more about the general design process for Sylvanus here. So we've gotten kind of the point where, okay, he's going to be this nature-y, protecting, he's going to be a guardian role, he's going to be this little man riding a tree, and, how much, I guess in the early stages of the design, when you first get that idea solidified, okay, it's a tree man and a little guy, are you like, where does your mind go? Do you say, okay, how many of these abilities need to be split between the tree and the guy? Does it need to be Sylvanus is actually doing all the abilities? Should the tree be more involved? Like, how does that process kind of shake out? It seems to be a feel thing mostly, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a feel thing, and also it's just a sort of balanced thing as far as the presentation is like it's like if the tree doesn't do anything, is like, then why is the tree there?
Sure.
And it's just like there is all these things that sort of played into it as to why he's a guardian and all that stuff, and it definitely making use of the big treant. He's big, he's beefy, is like he can take a lot of hits, but we also didn't want to just have it be the treant doing everything. So sort of looking at the presentation for the abilities and how that synergizes with his kit and everything just sort of came together as we iterated on him. So
well, can we talk a little bit about maybe like first impressions, and then kind of like the design process? So Sylvanus, again, he's the tree guy. Here's his general thing. He's gonna be this guardian. We're gonna be maybe team fight oriented. You know, when you like first get that first moment of like, I guess, creative spark of inspiration, where you're like, this is the guy I'm doing. Like, do those elements in this kit in particular have those carried over? Like, were your initial reactions some of the things that actually made it into the kit?
Absolutely. I'd say almost everything that that I initially wanted to get in the kit has persevered to some extent in his kit. There's been a lot of changes as far as what they do, sort of ability-wise, but the overarching sort of ability concept definitely stayed, which I'm really happy about, because usually it's just like, oh, let's toss that out, but it's been really cool sort of seeing the abilities sort of evolve over time and actually come together and fit pretty snugly in his kit.
So through that process, as you're kind of determining, is it that, I think I gotta put this, is it that role kind of dictates presentation? Or is it kind of the presentation ends up, and generally in your mind, would you see, okay, maybe he has an ability that sprouts trees, like, and you're, okay, he needs to sprout trees. Do you then whittle that down into a good ability you think fits the kit? Or is it more like, he's going to be this guardian kind of guy, what do we want to do with him?
I say they both kind of work in tangent, and you kind of riff off of both of them. Some of the approaches, like, oh yeah, it'd be really cool if he, made a tree that popped up, and it's just like, oh, okay, so if we want to do that, how will it fit in his kit? And then, once we figure out, it's like, okay, well, let's say we want to have him do a heal. It's like, is that really feasible to have it be, he sprouts up a tree? It's like, no, but maybe we could do it on something else. And so it's like really this whole iterative process of figuring out the presentation that's going to look really cool and how that works with his kit and what we want him to do as far as role wise.
Sure.
So there's a lot of back and forth.
So now, what about, like, just before we go into the game, actually take a look at some of his abilities here, guys. Like, what are the couple high points that you were like, this is what I really want to hit with him?
For me, it was definitely the utility that a guardian brings to their team, and I really wanted to see him sort of not be some god that comes in and deals a lot of damage and has CC and all that stuff. I really like the idea of having a really supporty sort of guardian, and I wanted to make that work. And so I feel like I got to a good spot with him, as far as like he's not going to be dealing out all of this damage, but is like, he definitely has a lot of utility to help with team fights. He has a lot of utility to help in the lane. And so I just really like to see where it's going to go once players get their hands on it.
Well, let's get our hands on it, guys. Let's go ahead and move into the game here and take a look at Sylvanus. First look as we ride along with the Treant, and well, first thing you'll notice is there's a circle out here, and well, you can see as he moves around, he leaves lovely little pieces of grass trailing behind him. So this kind of all fits into his like general feeling as this very very nature-based guy. You can hear kind of the flute being played by Sylvanus, and there's actually a little owl in here. If we let this idle run long enough, let's see it kind of come out here.
There's a lot of little subtle things.
Come on, owl. There he is. There's a little owl that lives actually in the Treant. But first and foremost, first thing you notice here is that his in-hands are, well, they're AoEs, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, they are.
So, what kind of, is this splitting the damage between targets? What's the general kind of feeling to this?
So yeah, it's a AoE base attack. I really wanted to try something different with him, as far as like having something different in Smite. And I just feel like him being a guardian. Guardians are usually melee and everything. I know we have Hades, but it's like I thought having an AoE base attack would be really, really interesting, as far as being a guardian and sort of having something for Sylvanus to do. He's riding on top of this big tree, and I didn't want him lumbering around and the tree swinging and doing all these things. So it's just like, oh, okay, this could be really cool. And so we tried it out, and it ended up sticking as we played him. And it's different, but I feel like people will definitely get the hang of it once they try him out.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe the more interesting thing here is the fact it's the only ranged anything really in the game in a basic stance that you can hit the back line. Like for example, you can hit only the archers here pretty easily. So it's kind of like, it seems like it's working out a little bit here. We'll get into the abilities a little bit more, but he's this kind of Guardian who's very support-focused in his abilities, but has this very kind of aggressive lane-based in-hand that it doesn't necessarily need the damage to kind of do the things some of the other guys do, where you look at, you know, popular Guardians right now, they have abilities to hit both the front and back side of the waves. You have those types of things going on with him. You can kind of isolate the archers and poke behind the wave, which is really interesting to me, I think. So let's talk about his first ability here. I'll go ahead and rank it up. Verdant Growth, as you see there, has been upgraded. And, well, this ability does a couple of things. First thing you'll notice that it's a tree targeter. It has roughly the same AoE as his in-hand. In fact, it's the same.
Yeah.
And the distance is about the same as well. So it's almost, in some respects, a modified in-hand ability.
Yeah.
So let me go ahead and actually spawn up an Odin over here, far, far away, so he doesn't mess with us. Spawn bot Anubis 2-1. There you go. So there he is. There's the old Anubis. But so this ability does a couple things. It's a conditional ability, basically. Yeah. So I will not hit anybody with it, and you'll see what happens. So Kevin, walk us through what we're looking at here.
All right. So he just threw that pod out on the ground. You see the little ring there. It's growing. It's taking a little time, and then it sprouted into this flower. So basically, if you do not hit an enemy with this attack, it will spawn a pod on the ground, and it'll begin to grow over 10 seconds. And then once it sprouts, it provides a passive buff within that range. And the buff is giving MP5.
And these things have unlimited lifetime?
Yes.
Okay. So it's...
You can only have 3 of them, though.
You can have 3 out, so we'll go ahead.
And they don't stack.
Toss, there's one, yeah, not stacking. And is it kind of like a mild, medium, strong mana? Like, what's the kind of general relative strength of this?
I'd say a medium buff to the MP5.
Okay. So as you can see, I'm getting about 2 mana per tick here at the rank 1, so it's going to be fairly potent. Now, are these destructible? What's the kind of...
Yeah, so that's another thing. So if you destroy that plant and you're within the range of that ability right there, so you see the little ring on the outer edge, it's very faint. But if you destroy that plant, if you're within the effective range, you will have your protections reduced.
Okay, right.
For a certain amount of time.
Okay, so it applies a debuff if you're in the range when you get hit by it. Now, it has a conditional effect when I hit a god with it, and that is...
it roots.
Yeah, it roots and it does a little bit of damage there, as you saw.
Yeah,
and now it
does damage.
Let's see if we can actually get him to break one of these things. Come on, buddy, hit me. There you go. So it now did the debuff. Right away! Let's see if we can get him to do it again. Maybe this time in it, actually. Come on, buddy. Come on, buddy. There we go. So he should be protection debuff now. Right. You can see I can root him and throw in-hands right back at him.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and rank up here. So let's talk about his second ability.
All right. So
and I'll just rank everything up. There we go.
Cool.
Okay. All right. So second ability is a AOE player-based AOE here. Yeah. And well, let's click on it. See what it does. It spawns wisps.
Yeah. So it's a wisp. And if you had a teammate out, there would also be friendly wisps that seek out your teammates.
There's some friendly Anubises to battle our enemy Anubis there. We need more Anubises, but as you can see here, them both in range. Well, we'll get all 3 of them. See if we can really look at it here.
Yeah.
So the wisps go out and they hit the different targets, and they hot friendlies and dot enemies.
Right.
And then in addition to that...
It also provides a protection buff.
Okay, so it's also protection buff. So you can kind of... It's not really truly a burst heal, but you can
it's a
throw
heal
it out
over
there.
time.
It's like a burst protection and then a hot. Now, do those last the same duration? Like, is the hot and the protection the same?
Yeah, they last the same amount of time.
And, like, generally speaking, even if you hit with your 1 witch dots and your 2 witch dots, you can see here, versus a level 1 Anubis, it's really not that much damage.
Yeah, he is not dotting you for much, but it is still a dot. It still deals damage.
You also may have noticed that passive meter actually went down during that engagement. His passive is pretty good, I think. Walk us through that a little bit.
Okay, so yeah, he doesn't really have a whole lot of peel aside from his passive. Basically what his passive is he has a percentage chance to root an enemy that is basic attacking him. And so let's say you're getting hit by that Anubis, and once you get hit, he'll be rooted for 1 second. Once that happens, that can't happen again for another 12 seconds.
So we'll see if we can get him to proc it. There we go. Yep. So and now I can't have him for another 12 seconds as you mentioned there. So
Right.
he has so we've kind of learned already that he has this range root that does a dot and alternatively has this kind of support potential. His number 2 is an AOE heal or hot and dot that adds protections to allies.
Yep.
And well, his passive as well. And let's talk about his number 3 here.
You just have to show him.
You may notice this targeter, and we'll just go ahead and do the whole thing. You can kind of see exactly what that does. That is a, well,
Yeah.
it's a pull.
Yep.
No two buts about it. And on a very long cooldown as well.
Yeah.
So it's a, and does it have, does it do damage?
Does not do damage.
Okay, so this is an ability that's purely a support pull.
Right.
Does no damage. You can follow it up with a root, of course, if you use the second ability. Come on, Anubis, why you gotta be that way? But yeah, you can see it's still not a cooldown. And if my Anubis is so kind to not kill him, we'll pull him in and we'll drop the root, and then he's stuck there for the duration of the root. So, pulls people in, buffs his teammates, heals them as well, has a persistent mana buff, potentially also roots as well, and then he has an ultimate. And, well, this ultimate is, as you can see, pretty common for a Guardian ultimate. It's a big circle around him that does the things.
Yep. Does the things.
And, well, the things in this case are a big old instant AoE knockup that also applies a dot.
Yes.
So, my take on this is that you're looking at a god that has, well, very low damage, right? Like, it's going to have, I mean, even if I dump on this guy, right, it's still not really going to, I mean, look, that's a level 2 Anubis that I've done not very much damage to, so he's really not a damager. He's really not going to be able to, I mean, solo lane's going to be fringe viable, if anything at all, but he has probably the best ultimate in the game from a team fight perspective. Knockup being an uninterruptible CC,
Right.
it's very, very potent, it seems like. So, you know, general itemization here, one thing that he is notably missing from his kit is no movement abilities.
Right.
So walk us through a little bit of, like, kind of the balancing act there with, like, mobility versus damage versus, you know, those kind of things, and maybe some of the challenges thereof.
Yeah, it was really interesting sort of trying to figure out where he was going to fall as far as, like, among the rest of the Guardians. And, you know, it's very common to, you know, have movement abilities and everything because you want to try and close the gap, especially to initiate. He does not have any sort of mobility abilities. He doesn't have any movement abilities, so he has to rely solely on his positioning and, you know, his abilities. He has roots, he has a pull, and I mean, especially coupled with, you know, combat blink or blink, something like that, is like, I feel like he'll be pretty potent as far as, you know, sort of controlling a team fight. So it's really like he's been playing pretty well in the playtest, and it's just a matter of, you know, getting him out there and letting all of the players, you know, get a hold of him. So I'm just really interested to see where he falls as far as, you know, his sort of position among all of the other gods. But I'm pretty excited.
Wrap him up. Okay. God, you remember how the time scale? You remember the command to time scale? Is it just that time scale?
No. Oh yeah. It should be slow-mo.
Ah, that's right. And it's SLO, right? It's like that.
Yeah.
Slow-mo 0.5?
Yeah, you could do that.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
So I just want to see. Let's take a look at his ultimate, like in glorious slow motion. And kind of see exactly what's going on. It's an AOE knockup with all that, as well as we'll take a look at the wisp. So you can kind of see exactly what's going on there. So he'll cast them, and it kind of he summons the wisp. They fly out of the tree ant, and then they go to their targets. His one. There's the root version of it. That's what it looks like, becoming a plant.
The effects are so awesome.
Yeah, the effects are really killer on this guy. And then, oh man, that follow from my Anubis is so good.
Anubis on it.
We'll turn it back up to full speed. There we go. So, any final thoughts on him? General expectations? You know, where do you think he lies, maybe relative to some of the other gods? There's only a Guardian with a heal.
Yeah.
Right? So, like,
yeah,
he's pretty squarely supporting.
Yeah, it's like I really want him to, you know, be this very, very strong support god. I want him to do well, you know, in the duo lane, and I want him to be able to help a lot with team fights and everything. I want this to be one of the Guardians you pick when you definitely want to keep your team up for the duration of a team fight. and I feel like he'll fit that role.
Yeah, it looks like. I mean, I think that the kind of hidden strength here is the protection buff.
Yeah.
It's really strong. I mean, we've used it some in testing it, and it's quite good. The protection debuff on the trees is like, it's one of those almost like Moozing Cob highs, right? You can like block a single auto attack, and like they don't really want to pursue through that. It's kind of a situation where like their hunter's chasing on yours, you drop one behind your guy, he pops it, he's now debuffed, and he's lost that auto attack. More kind of fringe viability there.
Yeah,
there's
been certain situations where it's like you're playing in the lane and you drop it in the middle of the enemy's minion wave, and you know they want to destroy it immediately, basically, because you don't want to give them that MP5, and so it puts that protection debuff on their minions, and that calls for easier clear. Yeah. Right there too. So.
Well, I suppose he's not the only guardian. Hades can heal technically.
Right.
Devour Souls does have a small AoE on it, so yes. And he's also not the only god that has a mana heal. Changa's number 2 also will do that in very small radiuses, both of them.
Yeah.
But he's the only one. He's only real that has a true kind of heal that's not like conditional upon being in the minion wave or anything like that. It's purely just. Whoosh. So a couple of questions here. Like for example, like how does Polynomicon affect his basic attacks?
Basically, right now, how it's working is it works just like any other basic attack. I mean, it applies to multiple enemies, but the sort of trade-off to that is that you have to lead people. It's
so
a lot.
Polynomicon would proc on 3 targets in theory.
Yes.
Okay. So it is fully an AoE in hand. So Polynomicon would proc on multiple targets. There's no magical spread damage. Any other on-hit effects? Demonic Grip, I suppose, would apply to multiple targets as well. So we'll try to take some questions.
There's definitely still stuff we're looking at.
Yeah, right, of course. So, and he's going to PTS, guys. So
yeah, he's going to PTS. But yeah, there's stuff we're looking at. But as far as testing has gone, is like we've been taking a look at certain things like that, and if we deem something very overpowered, we will definitely change it. So it's like all of this stuff you're seeing right now is not final. So yeah, just have fun with them on the PTS. Give me your feedback. We're always receptive to feedback. So just have fun with them.
So PTS should be going up on Friday, guys. If all things going according to plan, we'll have patch notes as well. Then we'll open up a little bit to questions here. A couple that I've seen so far have been around his pull. Does it go through walls? The answer is yes. Do minions stop it? The answer is no. So I guess give us a little information about there's a lot of things you could have done with the pull, right? The pull could have not gone through walls. It could have not gone through minions. It could have had all these different things. Why did it get in the way it is?
There's a lot of iterations on that, and pretty much my thinking was that he doesn't have any movement abilities. He's going to have to position himself in a way where he can initiate, especially on multiple targets, even though the pull is a single target pull. Is like he's going to have to be able to initiate some way, and so having it go through minions and having it go through walls, I figured would give him a little edge as far as that's concerned. But as we kept playing, it was just it was more fun to be able to grab the gods from out of the lane. So it really just was a matter of us playing it a lot and seeing what was the most fun. And definitely we can make adjustments to that later on too if that's too strong. I don't believe it will be. But yeah, that's how we got to that pretty much, is just testing and seeing what was the most fun.
Iterative design process. In hands, do they go through collision? Like because they lob, are they landing on the other side of walls?
Yes,
they are. Okay, so you can you pull allies?
You cannot pull allies.
You cannot pull allies. So only enemies and only enemy gods can be pulled.
Yeah. It also does not have damage.
Right, so when you scale it, I assume that you lose cooldown off of it.
Yeah.
So it's purely a support ability, and it's probably one of those things that you're going to likely drop 1 point in, have a long cooldown, unless for some reason you're playing them in a very gank-heavy format.
Yeah.
In which case you'd be willing to drop the mana on his number 1. Or potentially you're happy with just the root that's static on his 1, right? Does that scale?
Yeah, it's static.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, maybe that's the one you put 1 point in because you want to be less support-focused, and you want more pulls more often. Basically, yeah, he can't juke, he can't move real fast, he's a really just kind of strong support laner, it seems like.
Yeah.
And then team fighter. Now, his ultimate, does it have CC immunity on the channel?
I believe he does.
Okay, so it's like a standard ability. I guess this glowing effect not in there. Any other abilities or any other questions, guys, from the chat? We'll try to take a couple more. Does it deep? Okay, that's a good question. So if I have 3 verdant growth plants out, right, and I throw a 4th, does the 3rd one fizzle or does it pop with the debuff?
It pops.
So okay, so you can actually put down 2 behind your tower, throw 1 into the enemy, and then, well, the first one would then detonate. But it does pop, actually giving you that protection debuff.
Yeah.
So it is, in theory, it's gameable to somehow force it to pop on a target.
Yeah, it's going to be extremely difficult to sort of have
pretty hard to put together. But
it's like, oh, go stand by this real quick while I throw another one. Yeah. That's going to be interesting. I mean, I'm not saying it can't happen, but it
ain't likely.
Yeah, that's not very likely.
Since the pull does not do any damage, it wouldn't put him in combat necessarily. So he could, in theory, pull somebody and then blink.
I believe it does put him in combat.
Okay, so it actually has special case to put him in combat. Now, what about... let's see. What else do we have?
Yeah, I have to take a look.
Can he heal himself with the wisps?
Yes.
So he heals himself with the wisps. And people are asking a little bit about his wave clear. It's pretty poor, guys. His 2 really his only reliable damage source. The 1 does not hit minions, right? It only will do the damage to gods, right?
Was that the
1? When you drop it and it roots and does a dot, it's only if it hits a god, right? Or is it if it hits minions?
If it hits minions.
Okay, so you can't. Yeah. You could actually, in theory, do a little bit of damage there, but it's unlikely that he would be able to clear the lane very well. It's just not intended. Stu said on Twitter he's hoping PTS will be Saturday. Okay, so PTS will be as soon as we're able to get it together, guys. Sometimes Friday, sometimes Saturday, sometimes Sunday, sometimes not at all. Whenever we can. If it's not broken, we'll get it to you. Does one plant stack with others? No, it does not. Do wisps affect minions?
Yes.
Yeah, so you can actually protection buff your minions.
Yeah.
Which is pretty interesting.
You can heal and damage minions.
Do the plants provide vision? Do they count as wards?
No.
No, so they are not providing minions. Does plants give vision like a ward? No.
Nope.
Well, it seems like that we're pretty good on... does cooldown reduction affect this passive?
No.
Here's a good question from Vindict. What were some initial design intentions that did not actually make it in?
I
mean, we kind of talked about this earlier, and you were like, most of the stuff I wanted made it in.
Yeah.
Was there anything that fell off that, you know...
Really, there wasn't anything that fell off that I was just like, oh man, like that's not gonna make it in. Damn, that sucks. Like, yeah, most of it, and it was very loose from the beginning because it was like we just wanted to see sort of where he was at as far as like what he was doing in the beginning, and you know everything sort of came together really quick, and then we just sort of made changes to it based on feedback, playtest, all that stuff. But there was nothing that we just totally had to scrap that I thought should have been in, basically.
No, that's good. That's always a good feeling, I'm sure. Yeah. Is there an icon for the plants on the mini map like you can see with hives and traps and things like that?
Yes, I believe that should be in.
Okay. I
have to double check on that, but there will be definitely.
How many wisps can come out at once?
Just basically.
However many targets.
Yeah, however many targets are within your effective range when you cast the ability, it will spawn that many wisps and play the effects. So
I think final question. We'll kind of let you. We'll wrap it up with this one. Is kind of where does he fall in the kind of base stats and scalings range? Is he like super tanky, or is he kind of in the middle? Where is he in the Guardians? Do you remember?
Yeah. He's a little more on the tanky side. He's not super tanky, but he's a little more on the tanky side.
Okay.
And that's sort of to balance out, him being able to heal himself, him being able to provide protection to himself and friends. So he's a little more on the tanky side, definitely.
Very cool. Well, guys, that's going to conclude Dev Talk for today on Sylvanus. Tune in tomorrow for the patch notes. Thank you very much to Kevin, the lead designer for Sylvanus, joining us today. You can find him on Twitter at twitter.com/HiRezKP. You can find me at HiRezBart. Much love for coming through. Kelly's going to be up next with some streaming, and then we'll be back for the SMITE Pro League North American Edition. Me and Scott taking down the night games tonight, starting at 7:30, so don't go anywhere. A lot more great SMITE game content to come. That's going to do it for us, though. Have a great rest of your day.